This is Notepad. I'm your host, Ibrahim Sani. We want to talk about sustainability this evening. We want to talk about how companies and organizations, and particularly universities, can work together to try to improve on how the debate about sustainability can be reached. And because of this, I have two guests, one from WWF, another one from UIA. Sheena Damian, a policy analyst and senior manager at WWF, as well as Mizan Muhammad, director at IIUM World Debate and Oratory Center, or IWON. How are you, ladies, this evening?
Alhamdulillah, doing good.
Let's talk about sustainability, infrastructure, and development. Maybe Sheila can take this. Let's talk about how WWF Malaysia is working towards trying to bring about sustainability awareness. And of course, how does WWF Malaysia work with stakeholders like IWON or IIUM in this sense?
Thank you so much for having me. We know that infrastructure development is very important and essential for meeting the food, water, and energy needs for growing population, especially for our country, for a developing country like us. So we cannot avoid developing an infrastructure. But what we want to bring forward in the discussion about sustainable infrastructure is that a wise choice about what we build and where built, especially infrastructure that in a pristine environment and sensitive environment. Therefore, we actually, WWF, what we do so far in advocating this topic about sustainable infrastructure is by building capacity by developing a training modules, conducting training with relevant stakeholders, and then partnering with institutions like IIUM to actually encourage and advocate the debates about sustainable infrastructure and the issue about the impact from unsustainable infrastructure. So we are very thrilled and excited that we have partners like not only from organizations, like-minded organizations like other NGO, advocating the governments to make good, wise decisions in terms of planning, design, implementing, and maintaining the infrastructure. But we also thrilled and excited that institutions like IIUM is partnering with WWF to actually organizing competition like mock trial competitions in Malaysia. So this is our first intervarsity mock trial competitions that we partner with institutions like IIUM, and this is also the first time that we're putting forward the themes on sustainability in relations to legal advocacy, like because it's the first time we are doing this. So we are happy that and excited and very proud to have IIUM who also have the same moving forward and vision about sustainability.
Maybe Mizan, you can tell us a little bit more about this intervarsity debate.
Thank you, Ibrahim, for having me. All right, so this competition, the National Mock Trial Competition, is actually a new type of competition. It's not really like a normal debate or parliamentary debate that we usually see in the debate circuit, but this is more of a legal advocacy competition, which requires a combination of both advocacy skill and some legal knowledge and substance, particularly on environmental law and issues related to sustainable development. And for this year, for the first time we are organizing it, the focus will be more on the sustainable infrastructure, which we hope that this can be a new platform for the university students to explore this topic on sustainable development goal. Because and this is very much in line with IIUM's mission as well as initiatives, because as we all know, last year in 2020, IIUM has won the International Green Gown Awards, being recognized as the Sustainability Institution of the Year. So by collaborating with WWF for this project, we are taking it to another level in trying to promote the idea and knowledge advocacy on sustainable development further. Yeah, that's so far that I can share. And because this is an intervarsity, the participants that we are inviting are of selected universities that have that offers law programs or law courses in their university. And as much as this is related to legal issues on environmental law and tort law, for example, but still, it is open to any students, not just restricted to law students. So even the students who are taking international policies, for example, can still participate because this is not a mooting competition which requires you to know all the nitty-gritty procedures of court, but it's more of a legal advocacy, your ability to argue in the court setting using some of the legal principles related to environmental and tort laws.
You know, it's also interesting because the debate of climate has to be the pertinent one. The United Nations Climate Change Conference, also known as COP26, is just around the corner in November this year. And ahead of this, we've seen how the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, or IPCC, report shows that the findings of climate change is extremely in dire situation right now. Having said that, you know, when you see a document being signed off by over 180 countries or 190 countries, it comes to show that the effort to acknowledge at least climate change and sustainability issues is going to be a big theme for governments and organizations like WWF, like universities, like IUM. How do you feel the issue of pertinency or the issue of urgency has to be debated right now? Maybe Sheila, you can talk a little bit more about why this conversation must be had right now.
So thank you for that. I guess I agree with you that the climate change issue is actually the most pertinent issue that we are discussing about now. Even the moving in our country as well, we are talking about it. So WWF, organization like WWF, why we wanted to actually promote and encourage this discussion around this topic is that we want people to talk more about this, be open to talk about the issue. And it's not on the environmental issue, it's not just WWF issue, it's not just NGO, environmental NGO issue. It's actually affected everyone. The impact from unsustainability is actually impact everyone. So we want to encourage every levels of society start talking about it. So because of that, we are creating a public awareness, discussing this issue into not only our digital and social media outreach to various campaigns like such as this, but we also partnering with the government agency, with public sector to start talking about the sustainability issue. So we have for our program in WWF, we have programs in our terrestrial landscape and in the marine landscape, working together with the government as well as like-minded society and NGO to actually not only talking about it, but also start doing something about it on the ground. So for example, the simplest conservation work that we still ongoing with WWF is like, for example, reforestation, identify sensitive and pristine forests to be protected, areas for marine protected marine area that we know is high, but with high biodiversity, with our coral reef. So all this area we map and identify not to be protected and also to be managed together with our relevant stakeholder like the local community. So having this kind of competitions together with IUM and not forgetting our partner Sabah Law Society as well. We try to get as much as more perspective from different levels of society, from different level of profession. Maybe this year we are targeting the legal fraternity. Maybe next year we will do more activity with the engineers and perhaps with the architects. So we actually, this is the first time that we're doing this more targeted campaign. So we hope that WWF will continue doing more targeted with other kind of perspective, other different professional, to bring about the discussion and to talk about how we can work together and try to find a solution to incorporate our sustainability element in developing our infrastructure. No doubt that our country is a developing country. WWF never against any development, but what we want is actually when we try to develop and when we do our infrastructure, we consider the natural resource, the natural space, the biodiversity, the sensitive area, especially our wildlife and our forests. So that's why this discussion like this is important. What more important is that what come out of it, like if you don't do sustainability, what is the impact to the people that is actually affecting all of us? The flooding from the cutting hills, the pollutions, all this impact is actually affecting all of us, all walk of life.
You know, it's also interesting that much of what we're doing right now, WWF, IIUM, and of course us at Awani, is that we are doing it in tandem with all the efforts that are currently happening around the world. Mizan, you were alluding to the fact that this is part of the UN SDG. Maybe you can mention some of the specific SDG goals that is going to be achieved following this work. What are you trying to address from the many SDGs that have been listed by the UN General Assembly?
Okay, for this competition, since we are focusing on the sustainable infrastructure, of course, it's targeting at SDG number 9, which promotes which is targeting to develop sustainable, resilient, and inclusive infrastructure. But on top of that, I think since this is an advocacy initiative, that also relates to SDG number 4, which is providing a quality education. That the education that we are offering, especially at the university level, shouldn't be limited only to classroom settings, but it should also be an education that manage to not just creating awareness to the students or the surrounding community, but also it should be able to move them to take an actual action in achieving a bigger goals or other goals integrated in the 17 pillars of SDG.
If I may add, also this also contribute to SDG 16, which peace, justice, and actually strong institution, especially to target on SDG 16 3 to promote the rule of law and ensure equal access to justice. So we want, in the discussion in the mock trial, we try to put a scenario that will allow the public who are suffering from unsustainable infrastructure to bring about cases on to them, like what can they claim from the unsustainable infrastructure. So this kind of debate that we want to actually put forward as well, so that we can see the elements of equal access to justice is actually resonate to this SDG 16 goal.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I think the synergy that we have between the NGOs, the education institution, and some other corporate institutions emulate SDG 17, that to show how important it is for us to collaborate, that all these different agencies within the society needs to work together, and only then when we work together that we'll be able to achieve this, all the other SDGs that have been set.
Yeah.
We'll go for one short break. When we come back, we'll discuss a little bit more about WWF and IIUM's collaboration. We'll be right back after these messages. Welcome back. This is Notepad. I have with me two esteemed guests, Sheila Sheena Damian from WWF, as well as Mizan Muhammad from the IIUM's World Debate and Oratory Center. We're discussing about the collaboration between the two, and of course we want to also highlight some key points that have yet to be well debated in the public sphere, because even if we have spoken about this IPCC report, for instance, it's still not enough to be spoken again and again. Some key points from the report that was published early last month include very damaging stories like global surface temperature was about 1.09 centigrade higher in the decade between 2011 and 2020 than between 1850 to 1900. The past 5 years have been the hottest on record since 1850. The recent rate of sea level has risen nearly tripled compared to the years 1901 to 1971. Human influence is very likely, and they even put a number there, 90% likely the main driver of the global retreat of glaciers since the 1990s and the decrease in Arctic sea ice. None of this is actually good. None. And the fact that a lot of countries are now getting to grasp about what needs to be done brings about that story of whether or not it's too little too late. But I am an optimist, and I think that whatever we're doing right now is still possible, including that of raising awareness amongst the public. And because of this, maybe Sheila or Mizan can actually talk about how public involvement can actually be a key impetus or a key driver in trying to bring about better awareness of how we can build sustainable cities, live sustainably, farm sustainable food, and stop cutting trees. Do you think that that awareness is becoming more and more prominent amongst the public right now, or there's still a lot of situation where people really don't care? What's the story? What's the feel like on the ground right now? Either of you.
Okay, if I may share, in IIUM, we have actually introduced a new course called Sustainable Development Course. It's a university required courses which the students have to take. And interestingly, for the past 2 semesters, since this new course has been introduced to the students, we have received a lot of positive feedbacks from both the instructors as well as the students. Why? Because the way we approach this subject is that for the students to learn and to understand the issues revolving around SDG matters, and particularly those which are related to environmental issues. So what they needed to do was they need to assess their individual situation, especially now when the students are actually in their hometown, not in campus. So they were everywhere. So we could see that from the course assessments, we could see the realization of the students about the actual issues related to the development, related to environmental damage, related to water, all those things that were before this being discussed by the higher level management or policymakers are now being discussed by the students at the university, and they were very serious in looking for solution to it as well. So this could be seen from the journals that they prepared, from the proposal that they prepared in order to tackle or in order to address the issue. And interestingly, when they do this, when they took this subject, since they're at home, it was not just them who were involved, but also the family members were also involved. So I think this is a very good initiative which indirectly has made the society at the grassroots level to really understand that, or at least to acknowledge the fact that we have these issues and we have to do something about it.
So from WWF, what we hope for is that in considering with all this impact that we have, what we want more so is for people to have a change of behavior, how we actually responding to all this environmental issue. The first thing is to change the mindset that the environmental problem is everyone's problem, because it's affected us, our life. If we don't have enough forests, will that sustain our life? If we don't have enough clean water, if we damage our clean water resources, what will happen to us? So I guess the first thing that we have to do as individual to acknowledge that this issue is affecting me, so how am I going to respond? So we encourage people to start question, like, where does my water coming from? How am I going to contribute to protecting it? The oxygen is from our forest. Why is it important to protect the forest? It's not only for the wildlife, but also for us. Where's my seafood coming from? Whether this seafood is being taken sustainably or not. So I think we should start that kind of question, because it's actually affecting our everyday life. And moving forward, moving up to the next level is the decision making. As a citizen of this country, how am I going to influence the decisions of the development that in my place, in my area? That is starting to question the authority, like, for example, or even to involve whenever there is a project coming in, like, why are you building it, how are you building it, and whether this area, the assessment of this area is being done, what is the impact that will happen after you building it, or something like that. So I guess that question should start from us. We should contribute. That's why we encourage this kind of platform for people to start talking about the issue. And moving towards the next level is the whole country, our decision maker. How are we going to mainstream the environmental policy to all our policy in the country? Like, will it drive our economic policy? So that's the bigger question that we should put up there. So WWF is just one organization. So we actually invite everyone to actually come forward and actually discuss about how to make sure that what we do and what we decide to do, especially our infrastructure, is sustainable. So where you should do our infrastructure, and how you should do it, and who going to impact from this infrastructure, and whether the forest will be destroyed or the wildlife will be sacrificed in doing all this. We acknowledge that infrastructure is really important, development is really important to our country. Can we make that kind of development is actually a win-win situation for the nature as well as for us, because we need to sustain. We need to live not only for us but for the generations to come. So we have to think forward so that we can put a forward-thinking design, innovative, and also alternative that can actually make sure that this forest is stand while we are enjoying all this infrastructure.
All right, final word, just to remind everyone about the InterVarsity debate. Maybe Mizan, you can give us a detail again.
Yeah, so our national mock trial InterVarsity competition will take off officially in October, which we will be having it online due to this COVID situation. And it will continue as a monthly agenda and up until January 2022. And we hope that in January, by then, the situation is relaxed a bit and we'll be able to meet face to face. And we look forward for public to witness how our university students advocate this issue from the legal perspective, coupled with their advocacy skills and persuasive skills. It will be interesting for us to see what they have to say about the sustainable development issues in our country.
Thank you very much. Remember, the issue of sustainability is an issue for everyone to resolve and solve, just like COVID. It requires everyone's efforts. I urge you guys to search for more information on this, either on WWF Malaysia's website or their social handles, as well as on IIUM's World Debate and Oratory Centre's website and social handles as well. For now, that's it for this episode. Thanks very much for watching. I've been speaking to Sheila Sheena Damian, the policy analyst at WWF Malaysia, as well as Mizan Muhammad, the director of the UIA's World Debate and Oratory Centre. Until then, thanks very much for watching and goodbye.